What does the Bible say about the Arabs and Islam? That again, I think we need to come to grips with. And if the Bible says it, it's right. Now, understand, it's not Lindsey saying this. I'm going to read you what the Bible says. You remember that Abraham's wife Sarah could not conceive. And he was getting old. And God had promised him that he would have a son. And that his son's seed would be as the sand of the sea. Well, Sarah was getting in distress. She's an old lady. She's past childbearing age. And so she says to her husband, Abraham, you read the whole story, if you will, please, over in Genesis chapter 16, first book of the Bible in the Old Testament. And she says to her husband, God said we would have children, but we don't, and I'm very concerned. Would you mind taking my handmaiden? You see, when they were down in Egypt, Abraham had taken a helper for his wife Sarah, a lady that would do all of her work for her, and she was an Egyptian. And so Sarah said, would you allow Hagar to, you take her and allow her to bear a child, and we'll accept it as our own. Well, it happened. And as a result, her child is what is today the Muslim world, the Arab world. And after the child was born, Sarah became rather jealous. And she said to Abraham, you've got to get rid of Hagar. I can't have this. She's acting wrong in my presence, as if she's the one to do everything. And so Abraham said, okay, Hagar, you're going to have to leave. Well, in Genesis chapter 16, verses 7, after she left, she went out into the desert, and it was almost as if she and her son were going to die. But they didn't, of course. And it describes what happened. The Bible says that the angel, in verse 7 of chapter 16 of Genesis, and the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. And the angel of the Lord said something to her about the child that she had had, which Abraham was the father, and she, Hagar, was the mother. So that meant that this son is half, what should we say, half-brother to the Hebrews, which was Abraham's son. Sarah finally had a son, and the son, of course, Isaac. And so Isaac and Hagar's son Ishmael are half-brothers. The Hebrews and the Arabs are half-brothers. And the Bible goes on to say what this child is going to be like. And I'm going down to verse 8. And the angel said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, whence comest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself into thy hand. The angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly. Now, he has. He went on to say, and he says, your seed will not be numbered like in multitude as the sand of the sea. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. This is the father of the Arab nations of the world today, because the Lord hath heard thy afflictions. Now, I think it's time that this next verse be read from every pulpit in the United States of America, and for us to come to grips with what we are having done in our country. You've got to face this. There's no way of getting around it. God is always right. And the angel of the Lord said unto Hagar about her son. Here's what God said is going to be with this child. And he will be a wild man. Now I'm reading you right from the King James Version in the book of Genesis, chapter 16. And he said that the child that she will bear, he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand will be against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of his brethren. Is this what we want in the United States of America? Do we want Sharia law? Or do we want the Constitution of the United States of America? 3 years ago, I produced a DVD entitled The Middle East, the Rest of the Story. I had actually been told by one of the elite what nations were going to be, what should we say, conquered, such internal commotion that these nations one after the other. And they said that Saudi Arabia would be the last of the countries that would fall. Now, there was a problem. The elite did not have their way because of what happened in Syria with Assad. It set them back for over a year with their plan. Russia stepped in. Assad was not deposed. Syria is still there, and they were not able to overthrow it as they had planned to be. There are some things going on now with Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia, I was told in this DVD, that would be the last country to fall. There will be revolution in Saudi Arabia, possibly yet within 2016. And I think it's not going to be too long off. It's going to cause a major problem in the Middle East. It'll be the last of the Middle East countries. And when you see this, you'll understand what's happening there. Israel will eventually get involved. Now think with me about something for a moment. Iran is about ready to get a nuclear device. Israel knows that Iran has said, you've got to be annihilated, Israel. If Israel should in any manner invade Iran, think what would happen. Russia already has signed agreement with Iran that if anything takes place, that they'll come to her rescue. If Israel should take action against Iran, Russia steps in and says, Iran, I'll help you. Do you realize that Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39 could pursue very quickly thereafter? There are some very startling things happening in the Middle East. I said it 3 years ago, as the elite had told me. This DVD, by the way, is still available, and I would very highly recommend that you get it, because even though 3 years later, you'll see taking place in the Middle East exactly what my elite friend said would happen.